Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, desolators, peasants, vassals. Hezbollah. Hezbollah shit. I'm a useful idiot. Today I want to talk about the fact that it is now official. Hezbollah is in the war in Syria. And this is not really news altogether because Hezbollah has been known for a while to have fighters in Syria. And generally speaking, they have been involved in the fighting in Syria to protect 30,000 Lebanese that are living in villages just on the other side of the border in Syria. But now it appears that Hezbollah fighters are fighting side by side with Assad's Syrian forces, particularly along that Lebanese border area. And I also have to say that I have said in previous videos that I didn't really think Hezbollah was interested in another war with Syria. The basic premise is that it would be stupid. But it apparently appears that Hezbollah is stupid and wants another war with Israel. And but anyway, let me get to an article that appeared in a Lebanese paper, and this is what makes it very clear that things have changed. The Lebanese paper said, quote, Hezbollah has decided to join the battle in Syria, having calculated the results. It is a strategic decision for Hezbollah, which sees the battle in Syria as part of its own battle against Israel, unquote. And for Hezbollah's sake, I wish it was that simple, but it is not. And so the evidence that we have right now is that there's an offensive going on by Syria in the border town of Qusayr, and this battle has resulted in 70 wounded Hezbollah fighters and 30 killed Hezbollah fighters. So there's been substantial Hezbollah casualties, and this is providing evidence that this shift has happened. And what we see is Hezbollah entering the war on Assad's side, and this could help bolster the efforts of the regime to take back control of certain parts of that country. And it also gives Damascus and the Assad government a corridor through Lebanon, so they can continue to get the support they need. And anyway, there's also been a lot of activity on the border inside Lebanon, including evacuating of Hezbollah fighters and Lebanese villagers in Syria, and Assad's forces actually, some of them have been filtered back into Lebanon to receive medical attention. And they're also having blood drive all over Lebanon, so this is quite the hubbub. Blood drives going on all over Lebanon in order to take care of Hezbollah fighters going into Syria. And this has some other problems too. It's creating some tension in Lebanon because there are Shiites and Sunnis in Lebanon, and so this clash will only intensify. In fact, there has been continued and escalating street violence in Lebanon, so this could draw Lebanon further into the war. And I will attach a video I did about whether Lebanon is going to survive the Syria war. I'll attach that below for anybody that wants to check up on that. And of course, the rebellion in Syria is a Sunni-led rebellion, and the government is Shiite. So this is another showdown between the Shiites and the Sunnis. And this is pretty interesting to me, because one of the things that some observers have talked about is the fact that it's unfortunate that all these Muslim sects spend so much time fighting each other when all of them would probably prefer to be taking their angst out on Israel. But they are instead fighting among themselves, and Syria is a prime example of that. And this certainly goes hand in hand with U.S. foreign policy as far as destabilization and divide and conquer. Rather interesting that the foreign policy of the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia is what led to the collapse of these countries like Iraq and Syria, and pitted Muslim against Muslim. And this is pretty much doing all the dirty work. And in the end, of course, Israel will be the big winner, because all of these threats, these countries around them that were powerful and stable and could provide efforts against Israel, will regardless of what happens, they will be neutered from now on. Although these certainly these collapsed states, these failed states, will provide a lot of problems of their own. And one would suggest that that whole region could descend into chaos. Instead of having powerful Muslim nations facing off against Israel, we are now going to have Israel surrounded by failed states with all sorts of jihadi elements. Although, interestingly enough, in the middle of everything that everyone discusses about this region, there's one question that always gets bypassed, and that is why there has been no Al-Qaeda attacks on Israel. And that is a big question to ask. But that is a question for another video. What I want to get to is the complexities of Hezbollah getting involved in the Syrian war. So first of all, like I say, we have the divide and conquer. We have Muslims fighting each other. In fact, we have Hezbollah now in Syria, along with the Syrian forces fighting other Muslim groups, including the Kurds, including Al-Qaeda, including the Nusra Front, and the like. So that's part of this picture. The other part of this picture is we have Iraqi Shiites now coming in fighting for the Assad regime too. Ironic that the United Iraq is essentially theoretically a vassal state of the United States now, and yet Shiites, and the dominant government in Iraq now is Shiite, and Shiite Iraqi fighters are now going in to help the Assad regime. So just another aspect of how this Middle Eastern clusterfuck works. And number four, yes, is that Al-Qaeda are Sunni. And so that's kind of interesting. We have a situation where we have Al-Qaeda are Sunni, and Al-Qaeda is being represented in Syria, or I say Saudi Arabia is being represented in Syria by Al-Qaeda. So that essentially means Al-Qaeda is representing the Sunni presence in Syria for Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States, technically. So that's a rather, somewhat of a conundrum. And then we also have the fact that number four is that this could conceivably bring Israel into this conflict either directly or indirectly. Once again, there's a big risk here with Hezbollah. If they're going to make it official that they're going to fight side by side with the Assad regime in Syria, certainly that makes Hezbollah in Lebanon a target. And if things get crazier in Lebanon because of the tensions there created by the Syria war, that's also brings tensions to the point where Israel may make some decisions, as they are known to do. But the really weird thing, let's get to number five. The really weird bottom line for me is that we have a situation now in Syria where we have one terrorist organization, Hezbollah, fighting against another terrorist organization, Al-Qaeda. That could be the ultimate irony. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.